Hello, everyone, and welcome, a hearty welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. We connect authors from around the world to each other and to their readers. And so on the show, you meet seasoned as well as new and aspiring authors. And today's amazing guest is Lisa Vanderkwaak. She's got 25 years experience as a speaker, coach, and trainer, so you don't want to be missing this interview. She's a best-selling author and top-rated keynote speaker. So don't go away. We will be right back. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda. I'm a live video talk show host and producer, and I'm passionate about social needs projects and responsible social media advocacy. And talking about responsible social media with COVID-19 going on at the moment, we want to be very careful what we share out there because we don't want to spread fake news or scare anyone or cause any kind of scaremongering. But the purpose of this show is to share stories and backstories about our authors and aspiring authors. My amazing co-host is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. We haven't been on for a while. I've missed her so much. So
Mm.
Mary is an award-winning author of the Pooh's children's book series. She's also working on a movie screenplay. She's a mom. She's got three amazing inspirations. And she lives in the Nashville area in the USA, and I'm in Cape Town in South Africa. So let us know where you are joining us from. Mary, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Brigitte. Gosh, I miss you too. We have so much fun together and we get to meet so many cool people on this show. And they have so many, some really fascinating stories and learning about other people is so much fun, isn't it? And being able to celebrate their work and their passions and share them with other people is it's a real blessing, isn't it? Okay. Can't hear you. Your audio is out. Can't hear you. Hi, everybody. Okay, so welcome to the show today. So we are waiting for Lisa and Brigetti, and I will sit here and talk about writing and being an author. And I don't know, there's lots of different things about writing, and there's a lot of pros, and there's a lot of cons, and it is a lot of work. And it's something that when you go into it, it needs to be a part of you, a part of your heart, a part of your soul, a part of something you're very passionate about, because sometimes there are not a lot of rewards with it. And in the words of my friend Ken Abrahams, he said, for men, it's like birthing a baby for male authors. And I guess for female authors, it's the same, because we have visions and we work on a project for so long, and so much of our heart and soul goes into it. I have author friends who worked for a long time. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, you're back. Okay, so, I'm just talking about writing.
So let's introduce our amazing guest, Lisa Vanderkwaak. She is a passionate pursuer of freedom and fulfillment in all areas of life. She is a dynamic communicator, but interestingly, she says she was once terrified even to speak in a small group discussion, and believed that it wasn't safe to talk. It's hard to believe, that was the case for her. And she says that through a personal transformation process and engaging in coaching, she discovered the keys that help her unlock her confidence and catapulted her into speaking success. Now, she's looking back on 25 years of experience as a speaker, a coach, a trainer. She's also a best-selling author and a top-rated keynote speaker. So, notwithstanding the fact that we've had some technical issues to start the show with, let's give Lisa a hearty, warm welcome to the show.
Yay. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Mary Elizabeth.
We're so glad you're here. I would have brought you on, but Brigetti is the controller of the ship.
Okay, there needs to be someone in control.
There has to be somebody in control. She's the woman with all the power tools.
No problem.
We're so happy to have
Lisa,
you here.
Welcome to the show.
Go ahead.
Oh,
yes, absolutely. Lisa, we feel very privileged to have you here. Such an accomplished speaker. And as I always say to people in live streaming, you can't become successful at live streaming if you don't have your first live stream.
Yes.
And so I guess it's pretty much the same with becoming a public speaker and becoming an author. If you don't write your first book, you'll never be an author. If you don't have your first keynote, you'll never be a keynote speaker.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so today we want to talk about your book.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, you're absolutely right. I heard a quote one time that said, every good speaker was at one time a bad speaker. So we all start out somewhere, process. So thank you for having me on the show. It's actually my privilege to be here and to meet you lovely ladies all across the world. Here we are, 3 different countries.
Where are you?
I live in Canada. So I'm living in outside of Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay. I wondered, I thought you were, but I wasn't sure. And I want to ask you before you get started, how are, just take a brief moment and just tell us how things are where you are, because even though we're at different places, we are all experiencing the same thing, which is amazing, because none of us experience the same weather at the same time, That's right. But we are experiencing those at the same time.
Yeah, so probably not, probably similar to the United States. I'm not sure about South Africa, but I've been technically locked down for about a month in terms of, the restrictions of where we can go and all those things. So right now, our grocery stores are all very restrictive, how many people go in at a time, all the, there's so many restrictions they put in there in terms of physical distancing and streamlining the flow through the space and everything, kind of like IKEA. You familiar with IKEA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now all the grocery stores have become more like IKEA with arrows pointing one direction only. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course our schools, everything has been shut down and moved online. My daughter's in university. My son is in last year of high school, so they've all had to adjust. sports. My son is a high-level hockey player. All of those have been shut down. Everything. Life has been very different for all of us. So yeah.
I'm so
We
sorry.
pretty much had the same here. We're on day 19 of lockdown. And I've actually got another show called I was live literally just minutes before the show on a show called the Cappuccino Club, which is a group of women, business women that have come together in support of each other. And so we've been going live on that show every single day since the lockdown had happened, simply to do a community check-in on one another and to help one another consider how we can pivot, because a lot of businesses are going to have to pivot from what they were doing previously. Whatever you did before is not working now. And the likelihood is very huge that we're not going back. This is going to be a turning point for us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's one of the things that I've been sharing with my audience, is my messages, online with my community as well, is that we can't just wait for it to pass and hope that everything's going to go back to normal, because it'll never be normal. It's going to look different, and we have to be willing to make those adjustments. And so my approach has been, let's use this as an opportunity to expand our capacity, so that when the gate opens, I like to call it the gate's going to open, then we can go running and not feel like we're squandering or lost, but that we have added some tools to our tool belt, or skills, or like this, for example, learned how to do things differently and feel like we can keep moving forward. So for me, it's like, okay, how can I move forward every day, one step at a time, and not just wait around for this to pass?
Right.
So I think a lot of people have been shell-shocked by what happened, and they didn't expect this. They felt blindsided. They're kind of stuck. And I think especially brick and mortar businesses are really, really stuck. And every single day, I want to say thank you that I've had the privilege of learning to use live video 3.5 years ago. And so I can use that now. And people who haven't had the opportunity to learn need to, I want to encourage people every single day, embrace it, because it's a great way to keep in touch with your community. It's a great way to market, to show who you are, to build, relationships with people, because that is what's going to catapult your business to the next level, is if you can now work on relationship building. Yeah. So if we look at the community that you're in, Lisa, which is the speaking community, how do you think that's going to change? Because a lot of in-person events have been cancelled and postponed. How do you think the landscape is going to change for public speakers?
And authors too, because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. You mean on the other side of this? Are you asking how it's going to look? Yeah, I don't really know all that it's going to look, but I think there's going to be probably a hybrid. I think that people have now discovered that, okay, I can't just rely on in-person events. From all different levels, event planners to all different levels. And so how do we now maximize the tools at our disposal to be able to still be visible and still have a voice and still be able to give value to the people? So for people who have solely relied on, or who have seen speaking as going around the circuit in a live situation, they've had to really adjust to say, okay, and to see the other platforms. One of the things that I, fortunately, just like you said, Brigetti, is I've always, I shouldn't say always, but 13 years ago, I transitioned to the internet when I first started, out of necessity. And really, I'm thankful for that, because I realized, what, every opportunity that you are in front of someone is an audience, one-to-one, whatever it might be. And so to be able to see it from that perspective, that every opportunity we have, whether it be at a boardroom, in front of doing an interview, doing Facebook Lives, whatever it might be. So I believe it's going to be a hybrid. I think that there's going to be a mix of both online conferences, summits like we've seen already, but I think on a larger scale, especially because the technology is developing so much to allow us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tend to agree with you. I think a lot of people prior to COVID-19 were very either scared of technology or didn't trust the technology, didn't like the technology. Now we're in a situation where they're forced to use technology. And I'm hearing a lot of people saying, wow, I didn't realize it could do this, that, or the other, or, and I think, in South Africa, for example, there was a lot of resistance to people working from home because there was this mistrust with employers' ability to trust people to actually get the job done. And, now it's this huge, big revelation. Wow, people can actually work from home. People are productive from home. They can do this. We can do this. We don't have to spend so much money flying all over the place because we can have online meetings and they can be just as productive and effective. So I think it really is going to shake things up and shape things moving forward in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And companies will be saving more money. And for authors, it's going to be a little more challenging when you can't do public events, So I have children's books, and so can't go into schools, can't do big groups, can't go to the libraries, can't go to public places right now. So that's tough, and lots of friends I have in the music business, all their gigs have been canceled. You can't hold concerts. So for entrepreneurs that way, creative entrepreneurs that way, this is really tough for those groups of people and others as well. I know there's others I didn't mention there, but I have a lot of compassion for that and those groups of people, because I'm part of those groups of people. And then we have kids with the education system. And, I know my girls, and I don't know about your kiddos, but having that difficulty adjusting to being online for homeschool kids, homeschool feels like school. I mean, they do it, it feels real, but for kids who've never done it and now all of a sudden they've been forced to do it, it doesn't feel like real school to them, even though it is real school. So that's a huge adjustment for those kind of kids. I read an article that a woman who'd been in education for 27 years, both homeschool and public. And she said, this is not homeschooling, this is trauma schooling. Right. Because homeschool doesn't even look like what you're doing, because we're not meeting with other groups of kids. We're not going on field trips. We're not going here and there. We're not, we're not gathering, everybody has to be separate. And so it's a challenge. I'm grateful that every morning at 9 o'clock from 9 to 10, I get on FaceTime, or my son does. He's in first grade and he spends that hour with his teacher. So that's very, very helpful in our house and keeps him organized, keeps him feeling like, so I am, as far as he's concerned, I'm his teacher's assistant. Right. So that's how I get him to do what he needs to do.
So good.
To keep going. So we have to be very creative as parents. And all of our jobs have changed as parents. And I know we're sitting here talking about all this, but it's very important because I wanted you to talk about your book. But our as parents, as advocates, no matter what format that is, the hats that we wear as moms, dads, caregivers has just quadrupled the intensity of what it all is, because we're being called to be that much more than we were before all of this happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think
so. Lisa, I want to ask.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. We're being called to show up a lot differently than a lot of us have really had wanted to and are used to. So it's definitely a comfort zone pusher.
Yes. I call it COVID.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. Lisa, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. You were saying we're being asked to show up differently. So it's not about we're not showing up. We must show up. But how do we pivot from showing up in person to showing up in line and online? And your book that we wanted to talk about today is 52 Speaking Tips for Women to Build Confidence, Clarity, and Influence. Have you got a copy with you that you could hold up?
Yeah, right here. There you go.
I love it. And I love your part of the story where you were not always this way, because I have a child who is very shy, or was very shy and introverted. And my kids have done a lot of theater and things. And I think that the arts in any format are great for children who are shy, because and for any kid, actually, it's great, because one day you will have to go for a job interview and you may be a boss and you have to hire people and you have to ask for raises, and that gives them the opportunity to be able to step into that empowerment for themselves.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I always say I'm the least likely person to be doing what I'm doing, and God's got a sense of humor in that regard. And
Yes.
so if I can do it, and this is part of my story, is that if I can do it, I'm confident that anybody can do it if they're willing to be taught, and if they're willing to be coached and to learn new skills.
So tell us about your book.
Sure. Yeah. So this book was born out of years of coaching women. Well, I started out coaching both men and women in all different sectors. Some were politicians, government officials, corporate, the whole gamut, entrepreneurs. And then about a number of years ago, I would say maybe 7, 8 years ago, I decided to really hone in on women, because being a woman, I found as well that there were a lot of gaps in terms of the speaking industry where there were women, but a lot of event planners were having a hard time finding women who had certain skill sets. And this is what they would say is their greatest frustration, is finding women who had skill sets that were comparable to the males that they brought on as speakers. And when I was listening to these event planners talking about their struggles, I got really excited, actually, because I realized, wow, women don't realize that there's skills that are being sought out that they can learn if they're willing to be taught. And so I had been coaching for a number of years at that time in terms of speaking coaching. I was previously a life coach and still am a life coach, but now focus more exclusively on public speaking coaching or communication coaching. And I just started to really hone in on training, coaching women the skills that they need to build the confidence, because the skills that were needed were clarity, having a clear message, not all over the place, being concise, and then being able to own the stage. What do I mean by that? Being able to capture the attention of the audience and to actually motivate them to action. So those seem like simple skills, but a lot of women, men too, but a lot of women speakers, I'll just speak specifically about women, don't understand that there are ways to do that that are more effective and that are more, let me just say, memorable, that will really open up more doors for them. And so I began to do this over the course of the years. And then I just decided, I'm going to put it into a book, because I go over these tips all the time, and I have it in other formats on my online programs. And I decided I wanted to get this message out to a larger audience and put it in a book format to let women know that if you take these tips, and there's 52 for a reason, because if you apply one a week, implement it in whatever platform you're using. Now online is the main platform, the only platform, is to, if you implement it in your messaging, in messages that you put together, short or long, I guarantee that after 1 year, you will find that you will become much more clear, much more concise, but also much more confident and a much more dynamic communicator. So that's kind of my promise to people. Very simple techniques.
Love it. Love it.
I love that explanation about the reason why you chose 52. It makes perfect sense. So you're basically saying if you follow these tips over a period of 52 weeks,
Yeah.
you can become a keynote speaker if you apply those principles.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I know, because these principles have helped me become who I am today in terms of my approach to public speaking, and overcome a lot of roadblocks that I had in my mind. First of all, it's a mindset. I thought, you know what, I'm not an extrovert. I'm not talented as a communicator. I almost gave up because I kept falling on my face and kept getting into embarrassing moments as a speaker, until I learned that most of public speaking, most of what makes up effective public speaking, 90% of it are actually skill-based. Only 10% is based on talent. So that should give hope to people.
So are you talking about, so let's verify that and expand on that. So are you talking about that skill set is basically, the 90% is the skills that you have?
the skills that you can develop. So you can either develop them if you don't have them. And so let me give you an example. For example, many of my clients come to me and they say, I just need to learn how to be more concise when I speak. They tend to put a lot of information in the period of time that they have to speak. So they try, but there's actually skills to help you do that. There's certain rules, for example, that you can apply to help you to know how much content to put in, how much is enough and how much is too much. And then the skill of being able to deliver that content in a way that is concise and you don't feel like you're fire hosing on people, but you're giving them value. So I like to say less is actually more. Less content will actually give you more impact if you know how to do it skillfully and structure it in a way that is concise and compelling. So learning how to do that is a skill. It doesn't come naturally to people.
Right. Absolutely. That's such a good thing to say, because we do think that we need to give so much or overgive, and it's like acting. So on stage in the theater, you have to overgive, but on film, it's less is more, and that's the motto in film and TV is less is more.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
Lisa.
Go ahead, Brigetti.
Can I ask you, what are the overlaps between being an author and being a speaker? Are there any overlaps that people could benefit from?
Absolutely. I think the concepts are very applicable on both. For example, when I write, I use a lot of the principles that I use in public speaking, a lot of the systems that I use in putting together messaging in my writing. However, the difference is the languaging is different in writing than in speaking. You can be, I should say, you can use a lot more words in your writing than in speaking. You have to remember that flowery words sometimes are not the way to go. You want to be relevant. You want your audience to be able to understand what you're saying. So I think there's huge overlap in the two. I think it's more in the delivery, whereas a book, you can go back and keep reading it. Whereas a speaker, you have to deliver in such a way that when people walk away from hearing you speak, there's things that play over in their mind. And so how you communicate that, the delivery style, has to have that in mind, where how can I do this in a way that's memorable, that sticks in my audience's brain long after they hear me speak.
Absolutely.
So the storytelling is different. Both aspects are storytelling. Whether when you're writing, you're telling stories, and when you speaking, you're telling stories, but the delivery is different.
Yeah, and of course, the body language is a huge part of that, right? So in terms of the written text, we know that through email and through everything, we can misunderstand the context or the writing. If there's a whole, if it's not really explained more, whereas if you're speaking and people can hear you or see you, there's a whole gamut of communication going on that is missing from a written text, unless it's really spelled out in descriptive language. For example, expressions on faces, things like that. So body language is probably the biggest differentiator between the two modalities.
Absolutely.
Lisa, can I ask you now, with COVID-19, we are having to do things differently. We cannot stop the marketing process. The marketing process has to move forward. Do you have any advice for authors in terms of a marketing plan moving forward for the foreseeable future, since we are going to be doing things slightly differently? Do you have one or two suggestions that people could possibly tap into in terms of using this opportunity to market their work?
Yeah, I think what you and Brigetti and Mary Elizabeth, what you do here is definitely one of the biggest keys, is being visible on a consistent basis in front of your audience and bringing value to your audience. So what you're doing, I think, is something that we all need to take and apply to our businesses or our areas of service or ministry, whatever area that you have focused in. Is what I say to my clients right now is that you actually need to be more visible now than ever. And that doesn't mean that you are selling, or that you are continually promoting something, but you're just adding value. You're letting your voice be heard. You're showing up and being visible in front of the right people and adding value so that, because as you know, visibility, familiarity breeds trust and credibility. And so the more visible you are, more consistently you are in front of people, the more it instills trust and credibility. And so when the gate is open, when we're allowed to go out and play again with each other, then you're going to be top of mind for people if you have maintained that visibility as well. So I help, what I say to my audiences or my community that I work with is, even if you are taking your book, for example, if you have a book and that you've written a book and then you began to pull things from your book and say, and talk about some things about the process of writing it or some things that might be relevant to what's going on right now. So maybe you're not selling, but you're just making reference to things in your book or someone else's book. And so you're visible, you're bringing it into context, or you're talking about what's real and say, this would be a great opportunity for us to really glean and find out how we can learn from each other, which might actually turn into a book at some point in creative ways that we've had to pivot. So I think visibility is really key in whatever that means to you, consistently being visible, finding your voice in a different platform or showing up as a voice, and then adding value, really consistently adding some kind of value, whether it's encouragement or actually, here, take this and run with it.
All very good advice.
I like that point that you raised there, that when you are visible, when you are online, because that's where we need to be right now, it doesn't necessarily have to be about your book. I like that point. You could talk about somebody else's book or product or service. The fact is that you are there, you're the one speaking, you're the one being visible, and so people are going to remember you more than anything else. So now's not the time to sit back and shy away and think, well, I can't market. Just get out there, talk to people, the same way as you would walk up to people in person and talk to people. Read online, get a group of people together, maybe ask the schools, can you use, find out what network they're using and see whether you could join the class to read to them online. I see a lot of grandmothers doing that. They're doing videos, reading to their grandchildren. And I think maybe that's something, that authors can try, is find out how can we get a group of people together online.
Yes.
And still read and, and engage with them that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially now when people are probably doing a lot more reading, we assume, in terms of how much time we have. But I know that a lot of people that I talk to say, they're getting a lot more reading done than they've ever had an opportunity to do because they have more time in their hands. So I think it's time. It's interesting. I don't know. Do you make a vision board? Do you ever do a vision board for your year?
I have. Yes, I have years ago. Yes.
So I do one every year. And I take time at the beginning of the year and I pray and I say, okay, what's this year going to look like? What do I need to focus on? My goals? And then what are some things that and so I put together a vision board. I won't go and get it for you now, but it's interesting. The two words, and I didn't really know what they meant in terms of what it was all going to look like, but the two words that kept coming to me were reset and pivot. This is going to be a year of reset.
Wow.
And then the other word that I cut out of a magazine was innovate. And it's sitting, I can see it from here, my vision board. And, I thought those are just for me. But I see it's the whole world.
It's global. You got a global message.
So it's like, okay, what do I need to do? How can I pivot on purpose? because we can all pivot and kind of go in a completely different direction. Then maybe we won't stay in afterwards, or we can pivot with purpose in mind based on our values. So it's like, it's not a pivot away from our initial passion or initial purpose in life that we feel is our direction, but it's just a pivot in a strategy of how we're going to now continue to move forward, maybe in a little bit of a detour. So that's where the creativity and innovation has to come in. How can I do this? How can I continue to move forward, but maybe in a creative way? Maybe it's something I've never done before. Okay, it's going to cause a little bit of stretching. Am I willing to be stretched? And so those are some of the things I think we're all faced with right now, is how can I continue to move forward? And what do I need to help me to move forward? And who do I need to maybe be a resource? Which is what's so great about these forums and these kind of shows, where you glean from different people's experiences and things that they're doing.
Right, absolutely. You get a new hashtag there, pivot on purpose. or pivot with purpose, right? There's a new hashtag for you.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was just about to say to you, Lisa, I am so terribly sorry, but I'm going to steal that phrase from you, because we all need to pivot with purpose.
Yes, I know.
How about we both use it? That way it's collaborative.
Yes. Yeah, we're all gonna use it. I'll write up something about the show today, and I'll put, that's the motto for today: pivot with purpose. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's awesome. Thank you so much for all your information. This is what happens. We start talking, and there's so much to talk about, and then it's like, we gotta stop. No, we don't want to stop. We want to keep going, right? Because there's just so much to discuss. We're gonna have you back on.
I would love to. It's been, I feel like I'd love to get to know you both more too. And it's such a joy for me to be here. Thank you for opening up your show to me.
Oh, thank you so much. So where can everybody find you?
So you can go to speakingtipsforwomen.com, and you can also pick up a free speaking toolkit there that you can use. It's an e-course. And right there, you can find out more information about me on my website. It'll direct you to one of my pages on my website. So that's the best URL to go to.
Oh, wonderful.
So speakingtipsforwomen.com.
Can they get your book there as well?
My book is not available there. You can go to Amazon for sure and get it on Amazon. It is available both in ebook and a hard copy.
Okay. That's awesome. Yay. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. And you are probably a hot commodity right now.
Well, I think there's a lot of people are scrambling, trying to find their footing. And so there's a lot of us have a lot to offer in terms of different aspects. For example, we talked earlier about, children and their mental well-being and how they're navigating through this. I think even having those kind of conversations brings people an awareness of even needs that they haven't even thought about. So I think we're all I think it's an important opportunity for us to collaborate and really draw from each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back again next week.